Welcome to Dream Machine. My name is Aaron.
My name is Patricia.
And very exciting times. This is the first time actually we're doing DreamWorks actually in person from the sounds of it. So,
Yeah, we've done Pix Mix before. We've done casual chats several times. We've done Arun and Patricia here.
Oh, we're doing Insurance of the Crystal Skull as well. We've done
That's
that in
right.
person.
That's right. So now we are here doing Dream Machine in person. And yeah, this is the third out of the three DreamWorks movies that came out in 2024. And I guess DreamWorks decided to save the best for last in more ways than one.
Yeah. So I guess we are going to be actually not only is this the first time we're actually going to be doing Dream Machine with each other. Actually, this is going to be the last DreamWorks movie actually produced in Glendale, California, because after that it's now going to be moving overseas and going to be produced in other countries. So
Yes.
I guess maybe before we go into the Rail Robot, maybe we should probably talk about that a little bit. So first of all, it's sad that everyone seems to be leaving DreamWorks Studios over in Glendale, California. I just want to say that's a pretty sad thing because it's an end of an era, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because was it nearly every single DreamWorks film has not taken place, but has been made in California.
Nearly
All of them, because there was obviously a few exceptions. One was made in China, and
Yeah, we got Abominable.
Abominable was made in China.
I think Kung Fu Panda was also co-produced in China.
Yeah. So obviously there is an exodus going on from DreamWorks from that. So I guess we're going to be getting the bad guys too. I guess produced somewhere else. I mean,
Yeah.
did they say where it's being produced?
I haven't heard the announcement yet. I mean, literally, I think that there was a teaser trailer that just came out, but I haven't heard anything yet. I know that the next movie from DreamWorks is going to be Dogman, and I know that's being produced somewhere else.
Yeah. So I guess I guess the thing now with DreamWorks is like, can they continue to keep the high level of quality that we have seen in in the California studio? Can they continue doing that with different studios across the place? Because the problem they're going to run into is, I think, if the quality drops, or if they know that they're taking shortcuts, or they know that there's going to be there's problems in production because of the long distance travel that probably is going to be taking place, depending on where they're going to be producing stuff. I mean, people are going to notice that, and I mean, if the quality of DreamWorks starts to suffer a little bit, I mean, that's isn't good for them.
No, it's
Really.
not. And trust me, in this day and age where animation is at a bit of a conundrum where a lot of people from the industry are being fired and being replaced by artificial intelligence to quickly do their stuff. I mean, DreamWorks cannot afford to cut costs and to slope down on their quality. Otherwise, they're going to go in the same realm as Blue Sky Studios, in which they're out.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that I mean, it's very sad that I mean, it's this is now pretty much going to be the last movie that we're going to be talking about that's produced there, because they're giving us quite a lot of memories. I
Absolutely,
think
yeah.
from the first Shrek film to Kung Fu Panda to
Madagascar.
Madagascar, yeah, and actually we're going to be doing DreamWorks Dragons actually very very soon as
Yep,
well.
we are.
So we are finally going to get to do that. We will be putting an announcement about that soon. But it's just sad that we're finally coming to the end of it, and so it does feel like a monumental. And you would have think that when the Wild Robots first came out, you and I would have first gone out to see it. But unfortunately, we're newlyweds, and we've sort of been kind of like enjoying each other's company and everything. And so sadly, it got to a point where we just couldn't fit it in our schedule, and time just went on, and it just went further forward, and then finally, it did finally get released on streaming. So I guess you could say we're reviewing it as it came out on streaming. So
Yes.
we did finally get a chance to see it. It's just sad that this was a movie that you would have thought we had a chance to see in the theaters, but we just didn't get a chance to do it.
Yeah,
So,
we
sorry about that.
Yeah, we're very sorry. And we're sorry that it's taken this long for us to do the podcast, because considering that The Wild Robot came out in September 27th of 2024 and it came out last month here in the UK, we could have had all the time in the world to see it, but we just couldn't because we were just so busy with a lot of other things. Like, I don't know, enjoying our time together, me getting adjusted here in the UK, Aaron with his stuff. So, yeah, sorry we couldn't take a few hours of our time to watch a movie in theaters when we were getting, I don't know, more responsibilities done. And plus, we did old Spook Link creepy chats.
Oh yeah, there was that, and so it's just been a case of that. We've been enjoying each other's company, and so it's we finally have got here and finally got to the Wild Robot, and so it is a bit of a sorrow and a bit of sadness, and but at least we can say they let us off. They went with a bang.
Yeah,
in this.
absolutely. Yeah.
So,
So to recap for those who have just joined us for Dream Machine. So 2024 was kind of a mixed year for DreamWorks because we had Orion in the Dark, which exclusively came out on Netflix, and then we had Kung Fu Panda 4, which definitely hands down was the weakest out of the Kung Fu Panda films.
yeah, if not the worst.
Yeah. So we were thinking, okay, well, DreamWorks is not having their good year like what happened in 2022 when they released both Bad Guys and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. They are kind of like on a mixed year like what happened in previous years, as we've talked about over the years in Dream Machine. So we've heard about the wild robot. We didn't really know what to think of it because we saw the trailer. It was very vague. It's like, okay, we have this robot coming down to Earth and is interacting with a bunch of animals. It's like, what else is going on? So, yeah, I think that when we did finally get to see the movie on YouTube, courtesy of my VPN account, because if you were in the UK, this movie will not come out until next week.
Yeah.
So,
So we didn't get a chance to actually see this in effectively, like, in the United States, effectively. But
yes.
I mean, shall we get into the wild robots and see what we think?
Yeah, sure. So, The Wild Robot was written and directed by Chris Sanders. I'm sure you guys know what the name of
Well,
Chris
hang on a
Sanders.
second, babe. We need the intro.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Cute.
I'm gonna live forever in you, long as the sky and oceans are blue. I'll always love you and I'll never stop. I'll always be there, even when I'm not.
So, The Wild Robot is a 2024 American animated science fiction action adventure drama film produced by DreamWorks Animation and distributed by Universal Pictures. It is based off the 2016 novel of the same name by Peter Brown, and it was written and directed by Chris Sanders. I'm sure you guys know the name of Chris Sanders because he was responsible for Lilo and Stitch, the How to Train Your Dragon movies, the first Croods movie, and now The Wild Robot. And we can see that with Chris Sanders, he definitely keeps that same style where he takes a concept that sounds pretty average for a regular kids movie. It's like, okay, robot lands in on Earth and interacts with the world around him. I mean, you can insert any robot or alien story in there. But what a great thing about Chris Sanders, as we see him throughout the Croods, Lilo and Stitch, and with the How to Train Your Dragon films, is that he's able to take these everyday simple concepts that have been done a million times and is able to bring something that's fresh and new. Okay, Lilo and Stitch. Alien lands on Earth, interacts with human society. We've seen this before in ET and so many other things, but takes place in Hawaii. The girls is eccentric and they have this really great bond together. The sisters have this really great commotion where they're coming from recently losing their parents and all they have is each other. And here comes Stitch, just basically wrecking everything. And you have How to Train Your Dragon. Okay, a kid is not getting along too well with his father, and he seems to be like the odd one amongst these savages. And so, here he meets the thing that he is told that is bad, and it brings out the best of it, and he tells everybody that's good about it. I mean, again, we've seen this many times before. The Croods, a family who is from the prehistoric times, tries to find themselves in their oasis after so many things are changing in the world. I mean, again, we've seen this many times before. So, again, what's great about Chris Sanders' work is that he's able to bring something new into it. And with The Wild Robot, it's no exception.
Yeah, and so with the Wild Robot is based on Peter Brown's beloved award-winning #1 New York Times bestseller, The Wild Robot. The epic adventure follows the journey of robot ROZZUM Unit 7134, or Roz for short, if you will, who is shipwrecked in an uninhabited island and must learn to adapt to the harsh surroundings, gradually building relationships with the animals on the island and becoming an adoptive parent to one of the orphan goslings. And I really love how, like, the tags are on, IMDb. Just says, like, it's a robot, goose, fox, island, uninhabited island. It's like, yeah, that's like the tags. Like, yeah, that's sort of like, but it's just, let me just say this. It's far more than that. Like, this movie, like, I have to say, like, just watching the relationship of the characters and just going for this being on this island and with all these animal creatures and all the all the funny enough, like you would think that this was just going to be. I thought this was going to be kind of like a Wall-E situation. Do you remember when we first got introduced to this concept of the movie? And we
Yes.
thought, oh wow, so I guess they're going to try and do Wall-E as like their last pitch, before we go into the new era of DreamWorks movies. But no, this is voiced by, and you got to forgive me on the pronunciation of this name. It's Lupita Nyong'o.
That's correct.
Yeah,
It is
that's right.
Lupita Nyong'o.
Okay, there we go. So I did it, and so she voices Roz, and I have to say she does a very good job in taking a robot who virtually has no personality and no thoughts of her own, and then eventually evolving her into the Roz that we know. I think that's a fantastic way that she's managed to do that and keep the same voice traction going around it, and then making us really care about this character. And I think she's done a phenomenal job with that.
Yeah, and Lupita Nyong'o is a fantastic actress. She's been in so many eclectic films over the past 15 years. You may know her for 12 Years a Slave. You may know her for Nope. You may know her for the prequel to A Quiet Place. So yeah, she's been in so many amazing films over the years. I think this may be her first animated film.
Yeah, and she does a fantastic job of it as well. And dare I say, I want to see her do more.
Hmm.
Like, I think it's great. So we get Pedro Pascal as Fink, who is the fox.
Yeah,
And
and
you got it always feels like a joke. You got it's a robot and a fox and a gosling walk into a bar. It's kind of like it's not of a joke if you really think about it. But and by the way, it's not a bar; it's an island. You have Roz, who is this robot, and her whole purpose of existence effectively is to serve other people and to actually be a service robot. And she effectively is on this island full of wild animals and effectively has no purpose until the animals when she's eventually managed to understand what they all are, and then gets hold of this gosling, which is played by Kate Connor, who's known as Brightbill, and she has to raise this gosling, who is actually a runt, has no chance at all of surviving in the wild. And Roz raises Brightbill effectively to be this adult gosling, and and that's you get to see the struggles of all of that, and you get to see. I love how cute it is that Brightbill adopts pretty much the language, the way that Ross speaks, and that he does all of that. And I just love the fact that Fink is just like this smart aleck, fox, and you think, oh well, is he gonna be the villain of this movie? But he's not. Like, if anything, he's just like the snarky, one of the snarky protagonists of the movie.
yeah, it kind
If
of reminds me
anything.
of another snarky protagonist who just so happens to be a fox, and that's Zootopia.
Oh yeah, exactly. You got Nick Wilde there as well. And funny enough, his last name is Wild, and that's like it's funny though because I really thought we were going to be. I think if they played him a bit more nuanced, I think we would be making more comparisons to Fantastic Mr. Fox, I guess in a way. But no, he's it being DreamWorks. I think I get the feeling that when they see a particular type of animal, it needs to be played in a particular type of way. Like I was kind of worried, like when the bear came up and that's played by RJ, so played by Mark Hamill. I was a bit worried that this was going to be like the way that they would have done the bear in Over the Hedge. And I was a bit worried that was the way he's going to portray. But so thankfully, they seem to not, gone that far with the character. And Mark Hamill gives, the bear a really nice, he makes him. The bear's name's Thorn, by the way. I forgot to say that. So Thorn, where they make him look like a threat at the very beginning of the movie, but actually he's somewhat kind of like a misunderstood character in a way, and he is understanding of when he is under threat, and he is appreciated that when he's been saved and everything like that. So I mean, that's a character evolution. I think is pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And after all, I mean, the bear Thorn was essentially kind of like the one that started the whole thing, where Thorn was the one who responsible for chasing after Roz, and then Roz fell down on the cliff and smashed where the nest was and killed off the goose, killed off the rest of the eggs except for one, and that was Brightbill. And you would think that, okay, this is going to be like a major threat in the forest that Roz is trying to adapt to. And at first it is, but then as one particular scene happens, we do get to see more of Thorn's understanding side. And we just learned that, for all these animals in the forest, they're just trying to survive. Even Fink says that in the movie where he's starting to get more acquainted with Roz after, taking advantage of her by getting all the food, quote unquote, trying to feed the gosling
Yeah,
because
building a giant house.
yeah, so he's saying that everybody kills and everybody's angry towards one another. Kindness is not really something that is praised in the forest because everybody's trying to survive. So that's actually really important for animals. It's like, don't get too close.
It's interesting commentary when you really think about it, because I mean, dare I say, humans aren't too far away from that, are they? Like, they're too busy, thinking about trying to survive, in these difficult times, that they kind of forgotten like how to sympathize with people's plight
Yeah.
in a way. So like, it's an interesting commentary on like what we're kind of like as people.
Oh man.
And I like, I think it's well, I think it's important because I think this type of commentary I do really like, because you when you start giving personalities and you start giving character to these things in the forest, you kind of start to kind of sympathize with where they are at and everything. Like, you've got Pinktail, who's like, the mother who's just just trying to make her way through it, and she ends up having like lots of kids, and she just it's not the fact that she probably wanted them; it's the fact that she just has to do what she needs to do because her mother instincts kind of kick in, and she's not really got a choice in the matter. She actually kind of passes on that kind of message on to Roz,
Yeah, and
and
that's how Roz is able to raise Brightbill.
yeah, exactly. And so, and what as you got to go through like every animal in the forest, and dare I say, I think this is what was so interesting about Leo. The Adam Sandler movies, that as you went from kid to kid, you realize like all these kids have got all these problems, and it's up to Leo to kind of like help them out in that way, and figure out what's going on with them. I mean, obviously, some messages I think went over, I think more positively than others, but I think with I like that they've kind of done this also with the wild robot, where like they gave time on screen to all the plight of all the animals in there. Like the deer are all fighting amongst themselves for territory, and where the little animals just want to make it through the day without being eaten, and yeah, and just where you've also got like the birds are also fighting amongst themselves as well. And but it's funny enough, the one thing that brings them all together, funny enough, is the fact that there is another sort of predator in the wild, which they think is Roz, who they refer to as the monster,
Yes.
and then they all flee in terror every time she kind of comes onto the screen.
Yeah, and every time they see Brightbill, they're saying that he's the weird one because, oh, he's the runt who was raised by the monster. That's why he talks weird. That's why he doesn't swim the same way as the other geese. And oh, he doesn't know how to fly because, well, he was raised by the monster. He wasn't raised by a
He's
normal.
different, so we don't like him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
prejudice.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's funny how they take, they take, instead of like just like saying, "Oh, he's different, so we hate him." It's kind of like, well, they explain, they kind of like, we see how Brightbill has been raised, and it's unusual how he's been raised. Like, he's the runt of a clutch of eggs. He's not supposed to survive in the wild. If anything, the mother would probably have killed him, if everything had gone normally, and so he wouldn't have made it in this world. And Roz, has obviously upset the balance in that regard, because she took this small little bird and raised it to adulthood and got it to the point where it could survive, and not only that, like, you'd be the leader of the pack
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
it's almost kind of like similar to what happened in Charlotte's Web, in which Wilbur was born as the runt of the litter, and he was supposed to be killed off the moment that he was born. And we have Fern, the little girl, who says, "No, don't kill him. Let me raise him as my own." And we have Wilbur essentially trying to like go through life and struggle for survival as a runt, and then finally when he gets sold off. Now his next task is he's going to be fattening up so that he's going to be Christmas dinner, and so here comes Charlotte to save his life. And so he wasn't supposed to live from the start, yet he lives to adulthood for the rest of his life because Charlotte made up that lie saying that he's terrific, he's some pig, he's radiant, he's humble. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a similar situation in which Brightbill wasn't supposed to live. He was the runt of the litter. He was supposed to die either by eaten by a predator or an accident or even by his own family. But the fact that he survives, the fact that he was raised by a robot and a fox, the fact that he was able to do things that are a little bit differently. He learned how to fly from a hawk. He didn't learn how to fly from his geese family. So he was able to learn things and adapt to things that were very crucial to his survival and to the survival for all the other geese when they fly for migration.
Yeah, it's funny because the one thing though I was going through the movie, and I don't know if you agree with me on this. A lot of what we've seen, don't you think Blue Sky would have done more of this than DreamWorks would have probably have done? Like, there's a lot of goofy antics that happen in this movie, and not to say that DreamWorks don't have goofy antics. I mean, Shrek films and Madagascar and all these other types of films, they have goofy stuff that happen into them all the time. I'm not suggesting that DreamWorks aren't capable of it himself. I know some of the slapstick that were kind of going on in this movie. It kind of felt very Blue Sky-ish. Some of the things that they would have done in the Ice Age movies a little bit.
Yeah, I guess
Honestly.
so. I guess
Putting like a whole ton of raccoons like at the top of a tree, like bending it back and then flicking them into the air,
yeah.
and then watching them all fall into the lake. Like just that's the kind of thing Blue Sky would probably have done.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like a scratch kind of like sketch that they probably would have would have done back in the day. But and also like you've also got like the three characters like you've got Roz, you've got Fink, and you've got Brightbill, and it sort of kind of reminds me like the three person kind of like comedy sketch where you'd have like you have Manny, you'd have Diego, and you'd have Sid, from the Ice Age movie. I'm not saying it's exactly like the Ice Age movies. That's not the point I'm making. But you've basically got three characters who are very drastically different and then bouncing off one another. And I think that's what they've gone here for that. And I noticed that we used to see that in Blue Sky movies. We used to see that in some, dare I say, I think in some of the other like older animation movies as well. You take three, oddball characters, you put them together, and then they would just bounce off one another.
Yeah,
And,
very Three Stooge like.
There is well, I don't know, like I guess you would say it was Free Stooges. I might even say it was like the Free
No, I
Stooges.
mean,
But I
like,
know what you mean.
yeah, just
Yeah.
the three oddballs who are completely different from each other, and yet they basically just clash with each other very well, and clashing in more ways than one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the story in itself, it may be very simple on the surface, but when you dig more into it, there's a lot of complexities that is very, very profound. Like you were saying before about there's prejudice, there's being different from everybody else, there's finding your own path that's not just cookie cutter and that you are meant to do other things than what you were told not to do. So, yeah, I mean, it's able to bring in these really interesting things that I'm sure that would be very successful to a kid watching it as well as an adult watching it.
Yeah, and I just think that with the way that they've paced all this out, I think they've done it very well. I mean, it's so you've got the first act, which is Roz trying to adapt to this, like being crash landing on this island and not really realizing that this is not her purpose to be there, but then sort of like being thrust into the situation, if you will, with that. And then there's like her going on her this task of trying to raise this small little gosling and then bringing it up to adulthood in the second act, and then we finally get the third act where basically where the poop hits the fan effectively, and her task is basically completed. She tries to go back to the factory, but then they realize that she's going to basically be made into she basically has a brain emptied out, and then they're going to find out like oh, why is it that she acts the way, and why is it that she's managed to learn all the the language of the animals in the forest, and in fact they put them in danger too. So it's I think the way that they've paced out the story, I think has been absolutely correct. There's been times where it's kind of like, oh well, let's just start the characters, let's introduce the characters, then let's put some shenanigans in the middle, and then let's let's rush all the way to get to the end in some animated movies. And I'm really glad they didn't fall into that trap with the wild robots. So the pacing I think is perfect. I think for the way that they've done this.
Not only is the pacing perfect, but the animation is amazing. Like, again, taking cues from what they learned in The Bad Guys and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, where it has this beautiful watercolor animation where it's really bright. It can be dark if it needs to. It has a lot of great detail. I mean, everything about it is just phenomenal. And the fact that this was the last DreamWorks in-house movie, it makes me really sad to know about that. Who knows if what could have been the possibilities if DreamWorks would have gotten some more time to push themselves to do even better animation. But you know what? It's like you said earlier, they went out with a bang.
Yeah, they did, and it's all here on the screen. like the characters you really got to relate to, and also the animation I think is fantastic in this movie. Like all the action shots, all having to like I probably imagine they've done a lot of time, doing getting an understanding of like how forests look, and also on top of that, like this takes place basically not I'm not saying post-apocalypse, but I mean like it definitely takes place in some sort of future because I mean there's one scene where they're doing the migration, and obviously you see all the birds flying off, and then you see the van, and then you see like there's the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's underwater pretty much. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Like, are they saying that like a lot of like was this a metaphor for like the fact that this is like DreamWorks is coming, this version era of DreamWorks is coming to an end, and like there's going to be this whole new world. That effectively is going to be, we're coming out of that. Like
I
everything's going underwater, and now we're kind of moving in to like, whatever we're moving into next.
I never
Effect-
thought of that as at all. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, it is, and so you get an idea of and also you see cities underwater as well. So like, obviously they're laying onto the fact that climate change is happening, and so like there's entire cities underwater, and humanity's had to adapt to the new to the new way of doing things.
Again, very Wally-esque.
I guess you could say that. Well, mind you, it's like, you say it's Wally-esque, but I mean, obviously they're not there. They're not at Wally stage
No,
yet.
no,
I don't think they are. The world's not that trashed yet.
I mean, no, but I'm just talking about the whole post-apocalyptic world thing and robots sent to Earth, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But no, it is very different than Wally. But yeah, I do kind of like feel that maybe this is kind of like a metaphor for DreamWorks itself. I mean, I don't know if this was in the book, but it definitely does feel like, this time of DreamWorks is officially over. You've had DreamWorks around for, close to over 30 years, and they've done some of the most critically acclaimed and most groundbreaking animated films of its time. And that era is over. I mean, sure, there is still going to be DreamWorks films. I mean, we're going to get Dogman, we're going to get Shrek 5, we're going to get The Bad Guys 2, we're going to get several other movies, but it's going to be done by other studios. It's not going to be done in-house like it used to be. And so it could be a metaphor for the fact that, that period is officially over and now they're just moving on to different horizons. Whether they're going to stay with that, I have no idea.
Hmm. So it's funny because like in the scripts, I don't know if they were making there was people making different decisions, but they were like trying to like stay away from like the fact that oh hey if this character doesn't do this thing, he will bleh, and that's basically how they describe like dying. But then all of a sudden like a kid was just kind of saying, oh, if you don't do that, he'll die, and like it's just kind of like that's kind of weird. It's kind of like. It's almost like they were debating, like, oh, should we say die in this movie? Or should we just kind of like just say, oh, and, he's like, oh, well, he'll just meet his demise and, we're not, I don't know what they were trying to aim for here. I don't know if he was like just saying you can only say die so many times in a movie or like if you can, I don't know. Like it was kind of weird. Like the way that they were trying to like, like they were trying to scoot around the word. And also it's kind of like the girl, the kid actor basically just says, oh, yeah, if you don't do this, they will die. It's like, that was kind of weird.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if they were still debating like where the script was going to go or something like that. But
I'm not sure.
unless it was just played for laughs and I just missed the joke, I'm not too sure. So so there was that. And the one thing I didn't really like though is that where when the animals, obviously when we got to the point where winter was coming, and then the winter was really bad, and so that Fink and Roz realize that the animals are going to potentially freeze to death, and they'll be the ones that will basically survive the winter period. And they have to bring them all together, put them in this house, and then they all like are just fighting amongst themselves. And it was hilarious, like just watching Fink go shut up, and then it's the one of the little animals just goes shh, and then everyone just stops. that was hilarious.
Another hilarious scene that you pointed out when he
Oh yeah, the skunk. I was trying not to be mean spirited about that. It's like he's like, what are you doing here, you jerk? When he pulls the snow out and he says, "Oh bummer, this guy's dead," and just like, and then like Ross just grabs the animal anyway, and says, "That's not funny."
Yeah, but you were cracking up for like a minute.
Oh, good, great. We were all cracking up. That was hilarious. Yeah, and that's one thing about the Wild Robot. I love it. Yeah, the one movies I really like is like it's got that one hilarious moment that makes you laugh out loud for like a good minute, and probably have to pause. Things like that just make the movie experience so much more entertaining. So I wish they had more events like that, like because you've got to know these characters so well, and then when like something like it's just like they go below the, they go like, double down on the character, like, how they would behave. Like, that's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, the fact that they've created a character and that he can go even lower than that. Oh, that's brilliant. I
Absolutely.
love it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was made that one made me even more hilarious than it was. So, but the again, like, you got the beaver who, like, just beavering away, and he finally gets everyone kind of gets their comeuppance in the end because they need to push the tree over, and like he's like, oh well, look at me, look at who's been doing all the work this entire time. Do I get a sorry? He's like, and then he's like, well, I want a particular sorry from you, and I'm just gonna sit in there like, your island's burning down. Come on. It's like, there were those kind of frustrating moments in the movie, but it's kind of yeah. So but
Yeah, and also the fact that
you sprint quickly. Get on with it.
yeah, and one of my favorite moments from that when they were able to finally get over from winter to spring was the look of Roz, where she's covered in moss and grass, and it's very reminiscent of the robot that was featured in the Hayao Miyazaki film The Castle in the Sky.
Oh yeah.
You could definitely tell that there is a lot of influence of Miyazaki in this movie, where it's all about the importance of saving nature. And
Well, there's a lot of influences in the movie. I was saying before, like, there's a lot of Blue Sky influences, I think, in this movie as well. And I think, dare I say, I think they add some Pixar touches into this movie as well. And also, there's sort of like DreamWorks storytelling that we're kind of familiar with. That when DreamWorks is at its best. I mean, obviously, when DreamWorks is at its worst, obviously, you and I have talked about it. But
yeah,
I mean, like, I'm really glad, like, there wasn't, a fish just dancing around like that's voiced by Will Smith. And I think I'll just happily say that I'm very glad they didn't go to that aspect of DreamWorks.
or Baby that's voiced by Alec Baldwin.
No, I don't think we'll be getting that for a very long, will we? So,
No.
no, I think we can safely say that that's not coming back for a long time. But I think what made DreamWorks special, I think you definitely find in the Wild Robot. I think I can definitely say that. I mean, like, unless you're like a big fan of like those hip hop tracks that kind of like come in and like there's a montage of like Shrek like falling over and stuff like that. I mean, like if that's your bag for DreamWorks movies, then all power to you. But
Yeah,
like
it seems
the,
like
it's like the one thing I will say that's a bit uncharacteristic about about DreamWorks, I would say about in this movie is that they haven't like gone to like a pop track to like or do a montage or anything like that. It's all done through the orchestra, which I think is fantastic.
yeah, and if there are some songs that are being performed in this movie, it fits with the movie. It's not like, oh, let's get Taylor Swift, or let's get whatever popular singer is at the time, and let's have her do this top 40 hit. And that's just going to make the movie very dated. But they didn't do that at all. And I think that the song that they were able to have when they were doing the montage of teaching Brightbill how to fly actually works brilliantly. And of course, you have the music, which is done by Chris Bowers. And again, very similar to Lupita Nyong'o doing her first animated film, this is his first animated film to do the orchestra from.
By the way, like the person who got to do the perform the song is Maren Morris, and but she's an actress in herself.
Mhm.
So like it's like not only have they like got some, they just get some like random pop star to like just do the theme. Like they got somebody who like also kind of like understands I probably mentioned she's given a bit of motivation before. Obviously, she did the performance. I like to think anyway.
Yeah.
So because you can definitely hear it in her voice, like when she's doing all of this. Like, it's not just like, they just went into a recording studio, just got a band together and just like, dang, 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 wild robot. Yeah, no, I'm serious. Like, they went into this movie, music wise, design wise, character wise, everyone knew exactly what they were doing in this movie, which I think is fantastic because they all managed to stick to what the theme, the culture, and like what the style of this movie was going to be. And not at one point does anything miss a beat. I
Mhm.
mean, the one thing I'll definitely say is that, I mean, if it is any type of critique, I mean, I would say the spaceships and like, the futuristic city is sort of out of place a little bit, really. But I mean, like, it's not because it's a robot. So, like, if anything, the one thing that was kind of jarring was like to see, like, the battle robots kind of come out, start shooting everything.
I
Like,
mean,
do you really need like a battle droid to like, shoot a goose? Like, it was, I get it kind of prompts up like, the threat and everything like that. But it's kind of like, wow, like, you didn't have like any like animal control sort of like, robots to kind of like deal with this stuff.
I mean,
Apparently we need to go straight to army droid, apparently.
you have to understand that taking place in the future where they are far, far away from the wild, forests and, the oceans or anything like that. They're in this bubble. They're in this futuristic bubble where they're just basically surrounded by robots. There's no animals there, so I'm sure they wouldn't even know what to do in that situation.
I guess so. It's like, well, but it's kind of like, oh, hey, I'm gonna play Duck Hunt on the NES. Let me go get my battle droid to plug into my NES. It's like, no. It's like you talk about a sledgehammer to crack a walnut situation, But I guess if you think about it that way, I guess it kind of makes sense. But these people are like farming crops and I was imagining doing sort of like human sort of like things. You would imagine they would know what certain animals would look like, and also they see geese flying around from time to time. I would
Yeah, but
imagine they know what they are.
I mean, they called it contamination. It's like, oh, this is an animal in here. It's not supposed to be in here. And the humans were freaking out when they were seeing them. It's like they didn't even know what to do
Well, I mean,
themselves.
to be fair, there was animals coming in, and they thought they were going to eat their crops. So, maybe that was, actually, it's kind of a scary thing if you think about it. I mean, we don't know what. This is the thing. I think the great thing about the wild robot is that I mean, it doesn't really like deviate from the subject matter, which I think is good, because the one thing with something like this is that it could easily get lost in the weeds. It could end up like being less about the wild robot, kind of like oh hey, here's humanity, and the one thing I was worried about in this movie, I was fearing that it was going to do what Wally was going to do. So we were going to get introduced to Roz and all these animal characters, but then by the time we get into the third act, all of that's forgotten. We're like in some kind of like futuristic space city, and we're doing some kind of thing to overthrow like some kind of computer overlord.
Yeah, I
That's
for,
what I was kind of worried that we were going to end up going towards,
yeah,
but we didn't do it, which I'm happy, really happy to do. The wild robot does what Wally doesn't.
yeah. Whereas in the first act, where essentially, Wally got to meet up with Eva, and they had this really sweet romantic, relationship together when they were flying up into space and they were watching Hello Dolly and all that stuff. That stuff was great. But then, Eva has to come back because she needs to deliver the plant over to the spaceship, and then Wally gets to see what futuristic Earth essentially is. It's essentially this spaceship where humans have pretty much just lived there for 700 years, hadn't gone back, and now they just become complacent. And again, I get the social commentary and all that stuff, but a lot of people, there's a reason why they say that the first half is better than the second half, because it feels out of place when you go into the human side, especially when you've been focusing in the first half on this cute little robot. In this case, we thought that that was going to be the same thing, in which, like, okay, here we go. Roz is, her task is complete of
I just
raising.
wonder, would Wally have been better if it was purely focused on finding some sort of plant life, and then they struggle to get it back? Maybe they probably should have maybe the wild robot. To be fair, I mean there's a significant time difference between Wally and the wild robot, so maybe you got to give it that far. But I mean, when did the book first come out? I'm trying to remember.
Let me just double check.
Yeah, well, while you're doing that, I mean, the reason why I argue this is because I mean, I would
Oh,
definitely
2016.
2016. Oh, so it came out in 2016. So that's a couple of years after Wally, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
so
So
that would have been like 12 years.
12 years after Wally. Okay, then. So I mean, to be fair, I mean, obviously there's a massive time gap on Wally to improve the story. But this is the thing where well, the one argument I would have made of if that wasn't a factor is that it kind of made me wish that what if Wally, instead of them going up to the axiom and going towards the humans, it was more like, oh hey, they got to find this plant life to prove that Earth is that, and they just explained that, and then it was more about the struggle going around the world to try and find this plant, and then they finally find it, the all shenanigans happen, and then finally Eva gets to goes up to space to tell all humanity that lands go life, and then they all just come back and they leave out the axiom stuff. Do you think the movie probably would be better for that if
Yeah.
they did that? Yeah, I mean, that's what the Wild Robot seems to do. They contain their story with the characters that they have in throughout the movie, and don't add in other completely turn the movie on its head, kind of like what Wally did. So in a way, I guess I could say that the Wild Robot does that better than Wally.
I agree. I agree 100%. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the social commentary about humanity has pretty much become complacent, and oh, we're letting technology take over everything, and we need to give Earth a chance so that we can be able to inhabit it as our home, because that's the only home we'll ever have. I get that, but again, I think that there are some parts in it in which it's very ham-fisted, like it's really like in your face, and it can be a little bit off, especially when again you have the first half in which it has this minimalistic story about Wally and Eva and had this really nice, romantic relationship in a time in which when humans are gone and you have nothing left on Earth, and then you have essentially just these two robots are able to make way with what is not around. And, less is more. I always say this, less is more. You don't have to overcomplicate things for something to be good. And I think with the wild robot, I think they did it 100% correctly, where they knew the story, they knew how to tell it, they knew the right direction to tell it, and they didn't just skew off just so they can be able to tell a message. They already told messages throughout the story, and they were done concisely, and they were done, not in your face. They were able to have moments in which it just felt so natural that you were really taken by surprise in how they were able to present it.
Exactly, and so, and dare I say, I think, I mean, I'm trying to think of some other robot-based movies. I think that
Iron Giant.
I mean, you know what? I did make some. Can you really compare the Wild Robot to the Iron Giant?
You
Really?
sort of. I mean, it's a different situation.
It's a very, and also completely two completely different sized robots as well. Like the Roz is not some giant robot. Like if anything, like she shows some weakness in all of this as well. Whilst the Iron Giant, I mean, like the only weakness he kind of shows is like when he thinks that Hogarth is dead, and like then he goes completely crazy and starts trying to kill everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I think that there's kind of like a similar thing between Roz and the Iron Giant is that they were meant for another purpose. Like Roz was there to serve others. The giant was there to destroy humanity. And they were able to become damaged and they met up with somebody and they were able to find a different purpose. They were able to learn lessons about what life was able to see and offer. I mean, of course, everybody remembers that infamous scene in which when the giant sees the deer being shot by the hunters, and then he learns about life and death, and then he learns about a soul, and then he was able to, take that lesson and see that humanity was worth saving when the agent was shooting the missile that was going to kill everybody. And so Hogarth said, when that missile falls, everybody's going to die. And the giant sacrificed his life to save all of humanity, and he's as a hero. And Roz was going to save all the animals that were freezing to death during wintertime. And so it's regarded as a hero and being understood. Well, everybody just thought it was that monster. It's like, who sent this giant robot? Was it the Soviets? Was it the Chinese? Was it the communists? We need to be afraid of that thing because it's not American, and we didn't send that thing. It needs to be destroyed. So yeah, it is definitely taking cues from that 1950s Cold War propaganda thing that everybody was going through at the time. And in this case, where we have the wild robot with Roz, she's not an animal. She's this strange robot.
but
And
I love how the fact that Roz adapts to the fact that she has like she starts becoming like wild. So like she'll run like like a deer, or she'll like ground around like a bear, or like she will even do skunk defense as well. Like she ends up adopting the instincts of other animals as well. I thought that was kind of interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a case of like I thought we were gonna get like a scene where like Terminator 2 Judgment Day, where Sarah Connor and John have to remove like it's like switch the chip inside the T1000, the T100, and so I thought we were gonna get like one of those scenes where Roz was gonna like okay, well, I'm gonna switch up my my programming to see that I can like start learning stuff and everything. But I mean, the one thing I'll say about is that I mean, it's not really explained, and maybe that's a good thing. That Roz's compassion for the animals, and for Brightbill, and for everything that she admires around her. It doesn't come from like something that was programmed into it. It's it's something that she generated herself. And even she says, I don't know where this came from, but all I know is that I will not forget you because I have this inside of me. I thought that was really compelling.
Yes.
I thought. And so, I mean, I don't know if they'll ever make a sequel and, like, delve a bit further into this. I'm not entirely sure.
Well,
Maybe,
and there are two sequels in the book.
yeah.
One of which came out as recent as last year. So if we've seen from the bad guys, in which that has a long series of books, who knows? I mean, if I think that the Wild Robot did do really well in the box office. So and everybody's been praising this movie like there's no tomorrow. Everybody's been saying on the internet that this is like the best film that DreamWorks has released in years. They say that it's right up there with the classics like the How to Train Your Dragon films and the Kung Fu Panda films. They say that this is like a film that is like one of the best films that came out this year.
Okay, then. So, well, actually, I'm just going to go the numbers here. So it's took $78 million to make this movie, and it pulled in about $317 million so far. So, I'm not sure if that's a worldwide total or whether that's like a famous total. But unfortunately, now we seem to be getting this attitude where it's kind of like, well, if it doesn't do $600 million at the box office, it can't be successful. So, that might have something going against it. But you never know. Like, because we've seen other things come back, where they had low box office figures, and all of a sudden, like, we saw things, come back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows where we might go with this? To be honest with you, like, going in the future now, obviously we got the bad guys too. Obviously, there's going to be a fifth Shrek movie that's going to be coming out, and we have no idea what that's going to be like. And I think DreamWorks' priorities definitely are going to be somewhere else. But who knows? Maybe if this movie gets enough recognition, we might get the Wild Robot 2 or the Wild Robot 2. What is it? The Wild Robot Escapes is going to be like the next book.
Yes.
So yeah, who knows?
Yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see. But in the meanwhile, let's score this.
Wow. I love the characters in this movie. I love Roz. I even love Mark Hamill as a bear. I love the way that this place looks. I like the fact that it has commentary in this, and this movie just goes so deep, and the music is wonderful, and just following along with Brightbill, he from being a small little runt to also be be the leader of the entire flock, and just seeing going from like one place to another. I love everybody in this movie, and I got to be honest with you. I mean, there are some things I feel that are holding me back by saying 10. But I tell you what, I'm gonna say here, if it definitely is not a 10 in my mind, it is at least a 9.5, and that's where I feel like I'm gonna go with this movie. 9.5 out of 10. You could watch this movie; it's fantastic.
All right. Well, guess what? I'm going where you're not. I'm giving this a 10.
You're giving this a 10.
Absolutely.
All right, then I'll go with 10 as well. All right, I'll go with 10.
Copied from me.
Like it's no, like if you're going to argue, argue to me why it's a 10.
Okay. I mean, other than just some minor gripes that you think might have been kind of off, in my opinion, I think that there is an explanation to it. I cannot find any faults with it unless I want to be really, really nitpicky. I find the characters engaging. I find the animation fantastic. The lessons and the social commentary is phenomenal, and the fact that they're able to have a great film that treats the audience very seriously, which again you don't see in a lot of DreamWorks films. So the fact that they're able to push it in a way that is not too overwhelmingly adult and maybe not too akin to a child, like what they did with Orion in the Dark, and it's not going like child friendly and going all over the place like any of the Shrek films or Madagascar or anything like that. It's almost in line with something like Prince of Egypt or some of the How to Train Your Dragon films, in which it can be watched by both kids and adults. It's funny, and at the same time, it is so heartwarming and so compact with a lot of just great, great morals. And yeah, if I were to say anything that I find wrong with it, I'll just be nitpicking of it. I cannot really say too much on what's wrong with this film. I think this is a nearly perfect film, and I would say that this is right up there with some of the best that DreamWorks has ever done. And
It's a testament to the work that DreamWorks does, or at least did now. I mean, because obviously this is the end of an era.
Yes,
pretty much. Wow, what a movie to go out on.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they started off with Anne. Underpants, and that was a pretty decent film. I mean, at least in my opinion, is better than A Bug's Life. But I mean, they just continue to get better and better as time goes on. I mean, sure they had their hiccups and their missteps. I mean, look at freaking Boss Baby and Trolls and Home and all those other films that.
Oh, and the Will Smith fifth,
God.
yeah, I know,
Shark
like
Tale.
Shark Tale, yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I
like
would say that every time that DreamWorks fails, they would pick themselves up with a banger. So yeah, I would say that in this era of DreamWorks, where they would be very hit and miss at points, when they hit hard.
mm,
So I say that this is definitely one of the best DreamWorks films I've ever seen. I would say this is top 10.
okay, well, I think no doubt. I mean, we're interested to see like we are going to be doing the end of the year awards for Aaron and Patricia, so I'm interested to see where Wild Robot ends up. For this.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see for all of you guys who are watching. Let us know in the comments below about your thoughts on the Wild Robot. Did you think it was an amazing masterpiece, or you thought that this was just, it was all right, or you just flat out hated it?
Yeah, put it in the comments below. I really want to hear what you think about this movie because you and I, just we got so immersed in this movie, and we just utterly enjoyed it. And I mean, I have to say, I'm really glad that this is the movie that they went out on because let me safely say this puts a lot of pressure now, like on all the other, if there's other studios out there that DreamWorks is going to be tapping up to say that we can do just as well as the Glendale studio. I tell you what, they've got some work. They've got their work cut out for them because the Wild Robot is going to leave, I think a definite mark. I think on a lot of DreamWorks fans. I think, and so they're going to be interested to see. Okay, well, DreamWorks, now that this era is over, where are you going now? Or are you going to basically just let out a fart and then obviously we'll just go off to watch some other movies?
Well,
That's the scary part of all of this. Like, if is this truly the end of an era, or are we going to finally like say, oh hey, at least the bad guys too turned out pretty well. So
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah. Given the fact that I'm looking through my list right here, DreamWorks is once again releasing 3 films this year, one of which is actually a live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, let's see how DreamWorks takes the live action approach to their animated films compared to Disney.
Well, Disney did it and they made $1 billion, but then you realize that what they made there is are you definitely sure that's where you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, they tried to do the direct-to-video route when they did Joseph King of Dreams, and then afterward they were like, "Nope, not doing that again."
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how they turn into the whole live action thing. But there is going to be a live action animation hybrid film, Gabby's Dollhouse the movie, which we've never seen Gabby's Dollhouse.
No, I never seen it either. So,
Yeah, so
I have no idea.
Yeah, so very similar to Spirit Untamed. We're just going by the movie. We never seen the TV show, so that'll be interesting. But no, the next movie that we're going to be talking about is going to be coming out in February, and that's going to be Dogman, which is the spin-off to one of your favorite DreamWorks films, Captain Underpants.
Let me just, I want to address this just for a second, if I may. Like, there's going to be saying, well, I grew up with Captain Underpants. What's wrong with it? It's like, well, I didn't. So I have no idea what I'm going to be expecting when we walk into Dogman. Good grief.
Yeah.
What am I into?
Yeah. So as you guys know from the podcast, Aaron was not really much into Captain Underpants. I actually liked it.
I like Weird Al Yankovic's, theme song.
Yeah, that
for
was
Captain
actually really
Underpants,
good. Yeah.
But I like Weird Al Yankovic anyway. So like that's par for the course.
Yeah, I liked it more than he does, but mostly because I am familiar with Captain Underpants. I've never read the books, but I am familiar with the character because he was such a huge hit in the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to have to see how Dogman is able to carry on the legacy of Captain Underpants, especially since it's been over 10 years since that movie came out.
Yeah, so let's see what happens with Dogman.
Yeah. So until then, everyone, thank you so much for seeing this episode of DreamMachine now that we're here in person. So yeah, once again, let us know in the comments below about the Wild Robot. For anybody who read the book, let us know if there's any differences between the book and the movie, and if you prefer either or. So until then, everyone, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.